farming jobs of the past have been taken away by large-scale, mechanized agriculture that characterizes most of today's farms. While this is a very efficient way to grow food, many farmers and consumers feel that conventional farming is out of sync with nature. The industrialization of agriculture means that fewer Americans are now working on farms. Because not as many Americans work on farms as they used to, we're losing that educational experience of farming ourselves and learning about where our food comes from. Organic farmers believe that their way of farming achieves a balance with nature that's been lost in conventional farming. The food you find in places like Giant and Target are shipped further and processed to a greater degree than any other food system in existence. This means that more than ever, the average consumer is going to be removed from where their food comes from, what's in it, and what that means for farmers, for nature, and for our health. On top of all of this, food labeling is notoriously ambiguous, making it difficult for even the most food-conscious of us to figure out what's in our supermarkets. Between the consumer and the farm lies food labels, and describing the nuances of these relationships is incredibly challenging. Defining nature, or even natural, is a tricky thing. It all depends on where you're coming from. One of the most common and accessible perspectives to defining nature is through food. What makes something natural? What makes something unnatural, for that matter? Through a series of interviews, I'm going to investigate how food informs the human place in nature and how to improve food labeling to more accurately reflect food's relationship with nature.
My name is Sandy Zell. I own a health food store in Carlisle, Pennsylvania, small independent health food store. Farm to table food, and the closer you get to that, the more integrity the food has because it's gone through less processing, fewer hands, and it seemed like a natural way to eat. It was a way that I've always eaten, so it didn't seem unnatural to me at the time. But I'd like to see foods labeled if they contain genetically modified product, corn, soy, anything that's genetically modified. That needs to be labeled because there needs to be more transparency, and people have a right to know what they're putting in their mouths, what they're putting in the mouths of their children. They have a right to know. Anytime you inject something that's not naturally in the seed, it becomes unnatural. Anytime you breed something that wasn't intended hundreds of years ago, then it becomes unnatural. Yeah, natural is of the earth, from the earth, not messed with by man. The difference between nature and human, I think, or humans are a part of nature. They're a fantastically evolved aspect of nature. So we are a part of nature. We're all nature. Basic nature is of the earth before there were people here. But now that we're all a part of it. It's simply taking care of each other, and in taking care of nature, that means taking care of the trees, taking care of the plants. We take care of them, and they'll take care of us.
My name's Vanessa. I am a senior, and I worked at the farm this summer. I was a farm intern, and that means that you help with anything that needs to get done. You know, you get your food from a grocery store, and even though it looks fresh, you really don't know where it came from. You really don't know who grew it or what methods they used to grow the food. So I think my experience at the farm has definitely opened my eyes to different types of food, and specifically organic food. I think growing up, vegetables and cooking at home were a very big part of our culture and my culture at home. However, we didn't really learn about organic food until, you go out into a farm and you learn about how it's grown. And I think that has definitely cemented that idea of, working with the environment and working with nature to produce something that's healthy for you and for the environment. The first thing that I think about is, one, can I read half of these words? And then, you know, what do they mean? Like, what is this stuff that I'm eating, you know? Most of the time, I think, even here at Dickinson, you know, if it doesn't look very fresh to me, I like don't really feel as comfortable eating it. And so, you know, I've started to eat salads so much more now after working at the farm, because I know that this was grown in a place that was organic, and I know how my food was grown. And so, you know, going out and buying food, you definitely look for the organic, but I also just look to make sure that, you know, it doesn't have anything that's going to be so detrimental to me and my environment. And I think being aware of that has definitely changed the way I see myself within the environment. I definitely see how it's unnatural, and I definitely see how kind of, you know, modifying genes to get a certain outcome can be seen as unnatural, but, you know, there are a lot of benefits to it, especially in, you know, other parts of the world that kind of really depend on agriculture. Growing up, I used to love canned fruits, you know, like the canned peaches are really good, and as of recently, it just doesn't make sense that you would put a peach in a can, you know, that you would kind of can something from its natural form into this, you know, metal thing that has all these syrups and stuff. And I think if food is unnatural when kind of humans have manipulated it. And I mean, that's different from cooking, because, you know, cooking is more the preparation of food, but when they change its form, or when they change kind of the way it grows and interacts with the environment, that to me is very unnatural.
My name is Jen Halpin, and I am one of the farm managers of the Dickinson College Farm. Something I share often is that agricultural systems are not natural. So it's part of a natural landscape, but it's a prescribed and enforced landscape. So if we didn't weed our fields and plow them every year and plant them in tomatoes and cucumbers and lettuce, it would probably resort back. Farming that uses synthetic inputs such as fertilizers and herbicides and pesticides kind of stunts the capacity of nature, and stunts her capacity through building dependencies, just like drug addiction. And I think that it disables the landscape and the natural ecosystems to sustain themselves. And so I see it more as a crutch rather than natural, unnatural, if that makes sense. Of course, I feel like all of our food should be labeled as clearly as possible, and that as consumers, we should be able to trust that which is written on packages. So nature to me is what exists outside my door that is not man-made.
So in conclusion, here's what I learned from all of these experiences. First, we shouldn't reject nature too much from agriculture, but we must also recognize our own needs. In fact, there's a lot of opportunities for symbiotic relationships between farms and nature, as we saw at Dickinson. Secondly, consumers are very passionate about their food, and they deserve to know what they're putting into their bodies, whether that means mandating the labeling of GMOs or otherwise. Finally, as individuals, the best way to solve these problems is to get to know your local farmers as well as you can, or even better, grow your own food and experience it for yourself. Thank you for watching.